Here we go. There we go. There it is. Hello everybody, Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, checking in live from Buda, Texas, south of Austin. We're hanging around with our daughter Ashley, husband Kyle, and two little bitty grandchildren. One's 2 years old and one's a little over a week old. So we're getting to hang out with them and spend a little bit of time playing with grandkids and hanging out and talking to you. Hey, you guys know the drill. Let's see, we got 6 folks online. I see Adam Chandler. I see his name is there. I don't know who else we got. I can't imagine Jason Nepstad not being here. Let's see here. Let's see. I found the video. Oh, here it is. Talking to you. Oh, I got to turn the sound off. We got 6 folks online. All right, there it is. Okay, Adam Chandler, Matt Hines, Dion Myers. Good to see Dion. Haven't talked to Dion in a while. Good to see you, my brother. Hey, you guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Mike Cottrell's already got it. I see Josie checking in. Josie and Wayne on Wednesday date night. That's so dadgum cute. There's Mark Primo checking in from South Louisiana. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Put that in the comments section. Click like. Share this video to your timeline. You're going to be eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. I remember to bring one this time. And a mug, Mark Primo, say it with me, that knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. That's right. Now, I don't know if we had a winner this week because I forgot to ask Leanne to draw. So it'll have to be next week or the week after when we get to it. Danny Mack. Oh my gosh, it was 62 degrees at our house in North Texas this morning before we headed down here to the Austin area. And it was such a splendid day. It was a great day. I loved it. I hope you guys did too. Frank Yeager. Let's see here. Adam Chandler, you're making me laugh, man. That's pretty funny. Frank Yeager's got it. Michael Isley's got it. Kim Moore's got it. There you go. Travis Paul Smith. Travis, hope things are going good with you. I have a glass of water. Debbie poured it for me. Yep, nothing in it. Pure water. Tasty. Tonight, I thought I'd start off talking about balanced ponds. Because, you know, if you spend much time studying about ponds, you hear about balance a lot. You know, as biologists, when we were in school, we were taught you need to seek balance. Nature seeks a balance. So, you know, for a long, long time, I spent a lot of energy and effort and thought about how to get a balanced pond. I see Frank Jones. Frank, put your website up there. If anybody's looking for a pond boat, the Twin Troller is a good way to go. So, Frank, stick your website up there so they can find you and go take a look at your boats. His boats are pretty dadgum cool. I'm a big guy, and I was at Ray Scott's place one time. I don't know, probably 15 years ago, and they had this little boat, 12 feet long maybe, not very wide, looked like a little paddle boat. And one of the guys there, who's also a big guy, says, "Hey, come go with me. We're going fishing." I said, "I'm not getting in that boat." He said, "Yeah, you are." I said, "No, I'm really not getting in that boat. I'm big. I'll tip it." And he stepped on it to get in it, and it didn't even move. I thought, holy cow, that's pretty daggum cool. So he got the front seat where you drive it from. There's foot pedals down there. And it's a twin troller because there's trolling motors under the hull with a cage around them. And you could turn that boat on a dime. I was stunned at how dadgum stable it was. But we went fishing in that boat. There was plenty of room for both of us. So you guys check that out. Let's see here. Frank Jones, Frank James. Not much difference other than the name. And y'all are two totally different people doing totally different stuff. There it is, Freedom Electric. There we go. Jacob West checking in. Bruce Candello. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Jacob. Jacob, I hope you got to go look at your lake. Jacob and his dad were guests several weeks ago when it was time to put the first round of forage fish in their lake out near St. Joe, Texas. And it was a fun show. Had the most views of any show we've had in a long, long time. It was really, really cool. It was on site by the lake just before dark. Well, Debbie and I were in that neighborhood a few days ago, so we just hopped on by. I guess it was Saturday, actually. And I'd gone over there to take a look at another pond for another guy. And went and took a look at the West's Lake. And oh my gosh, they had a perfect plankton bloom. haven't fertilized. You know, they had some vegetation grow up in the basin of the lake because it took them a while to build it, but they had the most perfect plankton bloom that I've seen all spring long. And I hope, Jacob, hope you got to go. I know you were there Sunday. I hope you got a chance to look at that. There's Barry Mounts. He knows what to do here. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Good stuff. Okay, so now let's see here. Kim Moore looking for a smaller boat. Yeah, hey, Kim Moore. Hey, Frank, remember this, all right? Kim Moore's going to buy a boat. You're going to have to check it out with the family, but she's going to buy a boat. It's a good boat, I'm telling you. And that something else, while I'm thinking about boats, Ray Scott also did a number of endorsements over the years. You know, Ray Scott's the guy that founded BASS, started the Bassmasters fishing tournaments, Bassmasters Classic. Girlfriend, come here. Got my dog in here with me. What are you doing? Come here. Come here. Come here. Let's meet everybody. Looky here. Everybody say, aw. There's girlfriend. That's my puppy. Well, my puppy, she's a year old. There you go. Go lay down, kid. So, anyway, Ray was shooting a commercial for one of those inflatable, you know, you hit the water and it blows up. I can't think of the name of it. One of you guys probably will. There's Robbie Shell checking in, Chris Blood checking in. Well, anyway, Ray Scott looked at me and he's having a ball, you know, shooting this commercial. He's got his you know, his cowboy hat, his fringe and all this. Well, we go down to the dock and they're shooting a segment there and they've got him wearing one of these. And he looked at me, he says, got real serious. He says, Pond Boss, he says, you know why people won't wear life jackets in a boat? And I said, well, why, Ray? He says, because they've never drowned. If they ever drown, they're going to wear one. You know, if you think about it, if you get ejected from a boat, there's issues. I mean, I've been ejected a couple of times from an electrofishing boat. And if I hadn't had on a PFD, if I'd have hit my head on something, we wouldn't be talking today. All right, so let me go back here. I see Terry Traster checking in. He's up in Illinois, Moequa Pharmacy. Chris Blood, Texas Hunter. Hey, appreciate you guys sponsoring this show, Chris. And I got your email today. I responded to you. I'm looking forward to visiting with you some. Jake Carroll, Tom Blasdell. John Funk emailed me, and I got to sit down and give him an answer, which I don't remember what the question was. Whew, I probably did. I probably busted through about 15 of those. Robbie Shell with Purina Mills. Rob is in the marketing side, but he kind of holds hands with the nutrition side, and they're always doing some kind of cool comparative studies of fish food, and that's one of the reasons I love Purina Mills. You know, one of the stories I love to tell happened back in 1995 or 96, I think. We sent a letter to Purina, actually to solicit an advertisement for the brand new Pond Boss magazine. Pond Boss had been on the market for maybe 3 years, and Mark McDonald was the founding editor. He was the one kind of running the show, so we jumped in to start helping him, climbed on board, got involved in the business, and Purina said, hey, not only do we want to buy the inside cover of the magazine, which there it is right there. Purina's had the inside front cover since 1996. But more importantly, what they said was, we want to work with you and help start supplying fish food to this niche. We see the pond management niche as a burgeoning industry, and we really want to participate in that and help provide products so the pond owners out there can feed their fish. So they started doing some research, some studies, and that was the year Game Fish Chow was born. Now, up until then, it was mostly catfish food, so we were actually, with 2 or 3 of the guys, we were having lunch at a barbecue place in Glen Rose, Texas, and one of the Purina guys, Gordon Ballum, looked at me and says, hey, Bob, if we could help you in the pond management industry with better products, where would we start? And I said, you guys are used to feeding fish farms and fish of all one size, but we've got, in our situation, we got different sizes of different species of fish with different sizes of mouths. Is there any chance you could mix the sizes? Man, they looked at each other. It was kind of a palm to the forehead moment, seemed like, for those guys. And in the meantime, we're eating ribs, got barbecue sauce on our cheeks and sawdust on the floor, and it was just a great setting. And about a month later, I got a pallet of unmarked bags shipped to me of the first parts of Game Fish Chow. So that was the very first pond fish food that they came up with. And now, over the years, they've developed the Aquamax line, which has got two different types. They got pond chows, which are grain-based. That's what you feed catfish, tilapia, fish that are more vegetarian or omnivorous is the big word for it. And then they've got the Aquamax sport fish products, which is what we feed to like carnivores, largemouth bass that are feed trained, bluegill, hybrid striped bass, that sort of thing. So one of my favorite parts about Purina Mills is they have been really, really, really instrumental in helping design a fish food. If it wasn't for that fish food, I don't know that I'd be holding 2-pound plus bluegills today. That's a big deal. I have not seen a 2-pound plus bluegill under my care that has not been fed Aquamax products. And that's a pretty big statement right there for you guys to take home with you. All right, Jay Spires likes my dog, girlfriend. That's her name, girlfriend. It's pretty funny when I start talking about girlfriend. I never have been a really good dog guy until probably 7 or 8 years ago, till I started figuring out that you got to learn how to conform to them, and then they'll respond to you. I thought it was, you tell them what to do, and they better do it. Well, because, most of the dogs I had in the past were farm dogs. Well, now that they're companions, I tell people, she's just as red. You guys saw she's redheaded, and Debbie named her girlfriend. And I've had a brunette, blonde, almost dark black women hair color, and that's just Debbie. First redhead I've had, and I love her. She's cool. Let's see here. John Funk said, when did the last Pond Boss get mailed? I think my postman is reading them before I get them. Cute dog. You better edit that. Hey, John, go back and edit that post real quick, will you? Woohoo! Yeah, you better edit that. There's Joanne Pillafont checking in from the Smoky Mountains. The last Pond Boss was mailed, I think, April the 23rd. And it started hitting mailboxes. No, wait. January, March, April. Yeah, April 23rd. So it started hitting mailboxes around May 1, 2, or 3. So if you haven't gotten it by now, you need to call the office, 800-687-6075. That's 800-607, gosh, dog it, 800-687-6075, or send an email to info@pondboss.com to Leanne and let her know you haven't gotten your magazine. So let's see that. Let's see here. Harrison Davis is checking in from the East Coast over there in Georgia. There's Scott Hohensy, man. I just got through giving a ringing endorsement of Aquamax products because it's true. Jay Spires knows the drill. Mike Cottrell, thanks for the fish idea. Off of there. Just got an Amber Alert on my phone when we're trying to do this broadcast. Scott Hohensy is checking in. You heard that. Let's see here. Thanks, Mike Cottrell. Thanks for the fish idea on my bluegill sunfish hybrid. Let's see, my bluegill sunfish hybrid question. Are they good or bad? I know they fight good. Okay, so that must be hybrid sunfish that you've got. And I am going to start talking about balancing a pond here in a minute. Let's see here. Jay Spires from Charlotte, North Cackalack. Terry's talking about forget the boat. Get a floating cabin like Terry's got. You can move it around and park it where you want. If you got a hot spot and you can fish in the wintertime out of it. There's Leanne checking in. Denton Bates from Omaha, Nebraska. Good to see you. I'm working with a fella from Omaha, Nebraska that bought some property near Belzoni, Mississippi, putting the finishing touches on an almost 9-acre lake over there. It's going to be pretty dadgum cool. Frank James got the last couple of magazines. Leanne's in here. Last couple of magazines have been particularly good. Look forward to the next one. I tell you what, I hope you do look forward to the next one because we're changing our layout and design. It's totally different. It's refreshing and it's refreshed. It flows better. The contents is always good. I mean, we bust it to try to bring timely, just outstandingly good content that's timely for you guys. You can read these articles and apply them now during that span of time. So I'm pretty excited. We're getting ready to start our 29th year of publication, which is amazing to me. And it's thanks to you guys, those you folks that subscribe and advertise. Let's see here. my pooch. Enter to see Michael Gray. Now, Michael's a regular contributor. He's got his own column. And you know what? He's gotten a title now called Earth Surgeon. That's going to be his new column name coming up. Now, he's been writing for Pond Boss for a long time. 8 or 10 years or so. So he's coming. Let's see. Bob Mayer wants to see my dog again. Come here, girlfriend. Where are you? Come here. Here, come here. Come here. Come here, girlfriend. Get up here. Talk to him, everybody. All right, there she is. There's a girlfriend. She is an Australian Labradoodle and just an absolute sweetheart. And her name really is, her name is Lil Texas Girlfriend. I had nothing to do with that. This dog came from Oregon, by the way. So Debbie came up with the name. All right, baby girl, go lay down. We'll get back with you here in a minute. Let's see here. You know what? Since I do have a topic, I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to pause right here. I see Landon Wyatt checking in from Natural Lake Biosciences. If you've got a question about how to build a pond, Michael Gray can help you. If you want to talk about how to deal with runaway algae or should you use microbes with aeration, Landon Wyatt is your guy. There's Rick Best checking in from Laurinburg, North Carolina. Chris Chavetta from Innsbruck and St. Louis, Missouri. That's very cool. Tom Blasdell, I'm going to go ahead and answer this. Just putting the finishing touches on my Japanese beetle trap fish feeder. Just sitting back and waiting for the beetles to show up around 1st of July. Put some pictures of that up, Tom. Actually, why don't you take some pictures and email them to me, and we might be able to publish those, especially if the trap works, which I know it does. I've seen the Japanese beetle traps. Yeah, Chris, I see that. Gunner's excited to see girlfriend. Yep, Gunner is Chris's black lab. What a sweet dog there. Great hunting dog too, by the way. All right, so let me go on down here a minute. Bushy pondweed query from Frank James. Seems like it revs up in the spring and early summer, but then it retreats when it gets super hot in July and August. Is this normal or just peculiar to my pond? No, that's fairly normal. What happens with bushy pondweed, it has explosive growth early. Or early meaning when the water temperature hits in the mid-60s, it's going to grow explosively and it's going to level off. Now, part of what happens, it's not as much the nature of that plant to slow down as much as it gets covered with periphyton and silt and dirt because it's extracting things from the water to clear the water up. And so that can inhibit rate. So if you were to go in there and clean it all off, the growth rate goes back up. But that's a natural part of the game with bushy pondweed. It does slow way down. You know what? Holy cow, it's already 6:47, and I haven't hit the topic. Let me hit the topic real quick, guys. I started off talking about balancing your pond. You know, and as biologists, we're taught that balance is what you want. Well, how do you know when you're there? And for years and years and years, that was one of the primary goals that I had with my clients was I got to help them get their ponds balanced. You know, and 99 times out of 100 in a bass pond, when I first take it over to manage it, it's bass crowded. So that means we're going to cull bass, and we're going to stock some forage fish, usually adult bluegills, and feed them. I was talking to somebody earlier, and they said that he told me that you like some of these stories. I'm going to tell you a real true story here. Here's one. This goes back to probably 1986, and I'd been in business for 7 years or so, or in my 7th year, trying to figure out what the niche was, you know, where I could actually go and pond management. I mean, everything was leaning toward pond management. The state of Texas had stopped giving away free fish. I was managing probably 25 or 30 ponds for, 10 different people. And that's about the time things started to grow some. We had more people from the city buying land in the country with ponds on it. Well, I got a call from a renowned heart surgeon in Dallas who was on TV like every Thursday night. He did a news segment on one of the Dallas TV stations. And his name was Dr. Bob Johnston. Robert Johnston was his name. He's still around. I need to call him one of these days and just remind him of what happened. So he had just bought some property where the Brazos River dumps into Lake Whitney. So you could kind of see Lake Whitney off to the south, and you could see the Brazos River right there, and he had frontage. But on his ranch, he had a 6-acre. So I took my little electrofishing boat over there, and he climbed in it with me. And I'm totally intimidated by this guy. And I'm not intimidated much anymore, but I was then because he's taller than I was. And I'm tall. I'm 6'2", and he was probably 6'5". And just his profession as a physician, you know, and a renowned heart surgeon, kind of had me a little spooked, so to speak. So we shocked the lake, and it was typical. Bass crowded. We shocked up, in that 6-acre lake, we shocked up over 125 bass in less than an hour of electrofishing. Not one of them bigger than about 13 inches. Most of them 10 to 13 inches. And relative weights were 80% average, maybe 75 to 85%. And if one had eaten a fish that day, it might have been 95%. So we load the boat, come back, and I'd released all the fish. So we loaded the boat, came back up, sat down under this big sprawling pecan tree at a picnic table. Now, he had on a khaki shirt and overalls, so he was a little out of context of what you'd expect to see a heart surgeon. And he had a legal pad. So he put on these reading glasses, and he started to take notes. He says, okay, Bob, now, what do I need to do with my lake? And I said, well, Dr. Johnston said, you know, it looks to me like this lake might be a little overcrowded with bass, and the food's just a little bit short, so we should maybe even start talking about that. And he laid his pencil down, he pulled his glasses down, he leaned over, and he says, hey, Bob, are you intimidated by me because I'm a physician? Well, I was like 26 years old, and I started kind of pawing the ground to dig a hole I could climb in and bury myself. And I leaned back, and I said, you know, I kind of am. He said, well, girlfriend, no. Don't be growling at anybody. You're not a guard dog. So he said, listen, when you come to my office, we're going to talk about your heart, and I'm the expert. So when you come in, I'm going to tell you what you need to do with your heart circumstances. Now, out here, you're the expert. I want to know what to do. And I thought, oh my gosh. He says, now, you know what they call the guy that graduates last in his medical class? And I said, no. He said, doctor. Girlfriend, knock it off. Lay down. And he said, Bob, you put your pants on the same way I do every day. So now, you're the expert. Now tell me what we need to do. And I said, Dr. Johnston, these bass are way overcrowded. We need to launch this boat and go back and do that again and take out every bass we catch. We need to go find you some adult bluegills about so big. And you need to feed some fish food out here. And back then, the fish foods weren't that good, but they were what we had. And I said, you need to feed your bluegills so they can reproduce more, and your water's really, really clear. So in that case, I got a feeling that we should get your lake fertile. So let's get some fertilizer going. Hey, lay down. You're interrupting me. And from that point on, I gained a whole lot of confidence. I'm going to tell you, 99 times out of 100, we're seeing bass crowded lakes. So there's really only 4 kinds of situations where we have bass and bluegill together. Now the other types of fish kind of throw this off a little bit, but not a lot all the time. So we've got bass crowded, we've got bluegill crowded, we have balanced, and we have transition between these 3. And that transition may be after a flood or after a fish kill or in a newly stocked lake. That's the transitions. So if they're bass crowded, we're culling bass while we're increasing the food chain to reduce the numbers of mouths that we're feeding to get the food chain back up. We want to fill the cupboards back up so that there's more food to eat. And that's when we prescribe feeding programs, culling bass, stocking adult bluegills, adding habitat, structure, cover, things like that to make a pond more productive. Now, when we talk about balance, the revelation I had a number of years ago is we seek it, but we don't get it. It's like a seesaw all the time, all the time. You guys need to know this. You're trying to achieve balance, but you don't get it. And if you do, it's momentary because it's like Republicans and Democrats. They're after each other's throat for power every day. We have predators and we have prey in a pond. And I hope y'all laughed at that little analogy because in today's world, it's the truth. And so what we're trying to do when we're culling is our predator numbers are here while our forage fish numbers are here. If we can reduce our predator numbers of slot sizes and then push the fishery to where we can get the food chain back where it belongs, then we start getting closer to balance. And the way that we regulate balance that we never achieve is with harvest. I see Dave Terry just checked in. Dave's fisheries biologist with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, they're either stocking fish or they're setting up catch rate, creel limits and sizes. We do the same thing with our ponds. So when you're trying to do a balancing act, you got to remember all the key things. You got to have good, clean water, the best habitat for the different sizes of the different species of fish that you've got in your pond. You got to have great food chain. You know, you got to have decent genetics for sizes, and then you got to have harvest plan. And that harvest plan is your ongoing maintenance item. Now, part of that balance where it gets a little tedious, a little complicated, because we can take all 5 of those topics and drill down into those and get just as technical about it as you want. But that's that's it, really. Clean water, great habitat, superior food chain, great genetics, and a harvest plan. You can achieve balance momentarily and keep achieving it over time, where your fish will continue to gain weight. Now, one of the things that kind of throws a little monkey wrench in that is when you see some changes in your pond, like maybe you get a plankton bloom that changes visibility. Or like Frank James is talking about with his bushy pondweed. If he gets bushy pondweed that covers more than 25 or 30% of his pond, guess what lives in that bushy pondweed? The majority of the newly hatched bluegills, where on one hand, that's a good thing because when a bluegill is first hatched, 12,000 of those weigh 1 pound. Think about that for a minute. 12,000 weigh 1 pound. Now, I'm not sure who counted them. I didn't do that. But if we can keep them alive for 45 days, then they weigh 30 per pound. And that's when they become a significant nugget food source for largemouth bass. Now, what happens if we have too much pondweed, it can throw the fishery out of balance, because if those bait fish have too much habitat in which to hide where they can get away from being eaten, what you actually see is you can have a full dadgum cupboard full of bait fish in that vegetation, but if the bass can't get to them, they lose weight. You know, so part of the balancing act is balancing the vegetation and making sure you've got the right kinds of habitat at the right time. That's why when I'm helping design a new lake, I'm leaning really, really heavily on providing limited areas for aquatic plants to grow, because I do want them, but as much permanent habitat as we can in the form of rock piles, good hardwood brush piles, concrete blocks, mossback fish attractors, porcupine fish attractors, stuff like that. You know, so habitat is a good part of how to keep a pond in balance. We're knocking on the door of 7. I'm going to go back to your questions, but hey, don't forget, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine, click like, share this to your timeline now so we can get more viewers, and you're going to be eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. There it is right there. Good looking hat. And a Pond Boss mug. Jacob West, say it with me, that knows how to keep, he's saying it, I can hear him, I know Jacob. Hot things hot, cold things cold. We don't know how it does it, but it does it. Pond Boss Magazine, folks, right there. $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and this lasts a year, and the Friday night date's over in hours. I don't know why I keep saying that, but I just think it's funny. And one of my favorite statements came from a Mac Turner, one of our charter subscribers years ago. He says, Bob, he said, there's been a couple of times I did not want to renew my subscription to Pond Boss, but I've kept every one of them. And every time I open one up, there's at least one nugget in there that I can use. I think that's great. That's a good testimony. So let's see what our questions are. Now I'm going to go on down here and check them out and see. Todd Austin, Tim Phillips. Let's see. Deanna Myers is talking about the beetle trap. Let's see here. Terry Trister, is Bill Miller still the big boss at Gravois Mill? No, he's not. He's retired. Bill Miller's retired, I believe. Uh-oh, I just unplugged my laptop. Oh, well. Kenneth Dwiggins, hey, Bob, thank you for just being a happy face and sharing a passion we all enjoy. Hey, man, I tell you what, thank you. That makes me feel good. What are your thoughts on koi in a 1 acre pond? Pros and cons? I thought if I put maybe koi of 1 sex only, they wouldn't breed, but still could be enjoyable during feeding time. Thoughts, pros, and well, I'll tell you exactly what happened at our house. I see Tim Stewart's on here. Tim, where am I? I'm in Austin, Texas, buddy. So my wife loves color. For those of you that have been to our house or that will be there, you'll be really, really surprised at how much color there is. And you know, I'm a sport fish guy, and we've got a pond we call the Old Pond that was there when we bought the place back in 2002. And as time went by, Debbie says, you know, I think I'd like to get some colorful fish like Japanese koi. I said, no, these are sport fish ponds, and you know, dadgum, I don't want koi reproducing and taking over. Well, in a weak moment, I was up buying feed train bass from Inslee Fish Farm up in the middle of Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma, and they had a bunch of really pretty koi caught up. So it was the day before Debbie's birthday, and I bought 36 Japanese koi, about 8 inches long, for $5 a piece, and we put them in that old pond, and now here we are 18 years later. They weigh anywhere from 15 to 25 pounds. Stunning beauty, and almost every morning that we go out and have coffee, you can see them rise to the surface, come to the edge, and in the springtime when it's spawning season, they're spawning, but their survival rate is 0. And that's because we've got the pond stocked heavy with bass and bluegills. Now, right below our old pond sits the swimming pond. There's a levee between the two. And when we get flooding rains, water will flow over the top of this one and into this one. We have had some escape into the swimming pond, so now we've got them in 2 ponds, but they are beautiful. And I added a few more because with attrition, some of them disappeared. So my thoughts are, if you want to add color, I am not totally opposed to koi. We did it, and we like it. It's really, really pretty. So let's see here. I'm going to scroll on down here and see what else we got. Chance Birch. Hey, Bob, I've been fishing in a pond that's overstocked with bass. Good to see Chance on here. I caught 16 bass in about an hour and a half for a total weight of 6.4 pounds. What's a good number to take out, or pounds per year? A fishing pond that's overstocked. I tell you what our general guidelines are. Our general guidelines, and this fits right into with the topic of balancing a pond. In a pond that's overcrowded, you got 16 bass in an hour. That's a high catch rate, and they weighed 6 pounds. So that's not even a half-pound average. How many do you take out? Here's what I tell people. Start with 25 bass per acre per year. That's your starting point. As you go, weigh and measure those fish. It's worth it. So as you weigh and measure those fish, write them down. And what you'll see, as you're getting to the point that you've culled enough that the slot should change, that catch slot, and I'm going to tell you, harvest bass under 14 inches. If you catch a skinny 14-inch one, take it out. But in a pond like that, you're harvesting bass 14 inches and smaller, and you're going to be weighing and measure them, and then over time, you'll start to see their relative weights go up. That's how you know you're starting to get to the point that you're harvesting enough. Now, keep in mind, as productive as these ponds are, you're going to have more fish coming up to fill that slot. So harvest won't necessarily end unless you're able to grow enough big bass that they can help you cull. Now, our friends in the Midwest and northern states, if you've got crowded bass, not only do you need to harvest some of them, and let me, while I'm on that point, I think it's a smart idea if you're wanting to really grow some big bass that you bring in an electrofishing boat once a year to help with that harvest, because an electrofishing boat is random. And where angling is selective for aggressive bass, which is an inherited trait, that's a big deal. Now, in the Midwestern states and northern states, you can also use fish like tiger muskies to help you harvest. If you're not growing up, and it's notorious in the Midwestern and northern states for bass not to get much bigger than 5 or 6 or 7 pounds. Whereas I think you can use tiger muskies to help harvest some of those bass. So look at that. All right, let's see here. Dave Fontaine, Danny Mack's back on. Let's see here. Kyle McKean's checking in. Hey, man. Chris Chavetta, good. Robbie Shell, Terry, a few years ago, Terry developed a fish attractant bait using Aquamax fish foods, and he worked with Gordon and with the other guys, and that's how he knows those guys. Let's see, John Henry, do you know of issues that might be killing or eating my catfish out of a 3/4 acre pond? Minnows, bluegill, bullfrog, tadpoles are in the thousands with some nice bluegill showing up. Bluegill are spawning every year now. And if I don't get a predator fish, they soon may number in the millions. Stocked catfish 4 times and they seem to disappear. I'll tell you, my very first inclination is river otters. I don't know where you are. If you're in New Mexico, that's probably not the case. Girlfriend, hey, we've had this discussion. Come here, lay down. You know what you need to do. Just lay down. So, if the catfish are disappearing, killing or eating catfish, yeah, you know what? Cormorants could be doing that. depending on how big they are. Now, in a 3/4 acre pond, I don't know where you are, John, I don't remember, but if you can stock some 8 to 10 inch catfish about right now and feed them Purina's fish food, you're going to grow some bigger catfish that can escape cormorants and things like come here. Don't need to be growling at those other dogs. Get up here. So, where was I? Okay, so if you stock some 8 to 10 inch catfish, then feed those guys, then they could be vulnerable to otters, but that's going to be pretty much it. And if you feed them and get them bigger, then your survival rates are going to go up. Okay, now listen, we've had this talk. Give me a kiss. Good girl. Lay down. All right, let's see here. I'm going to get some more and see what else we got here. I'm getting a little bit behind. Steve Lewis, Tyler Cole, Bruce Condello's in again. Hey, Bruce, man. These pictures of fish that Bruce sends me are just stunning. He's got this nut cracked. Hey, we're going to reschedule the Pond Boss, or the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology that we had to postpone in April. We're going to reschedule that for October, and I know we got some guys on here that are planning to come. I'll be in touch with you guys next week, and if any of you out here or want to come to that, drop me an email and I'll tell you about it, and we'll send you a brochure and things on it. Steve Lewis, fisheries biologist from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Let's see, Bruce just shared this to the entire free world. Bruce is an administrator on about 840 Facebook pages. And every time he shares this to the whole free world, our view numbers skyrocket. So Bruce, thank you very much. Let's see here. Go back down here. Bradley W. Richardson, Michael Eric from Iowa. Dick Tabbert, Swanton, Ohio. Mark Dauber checking in from Pensacola, Alabama. Let's see here. Chad Nico, Josh Jones. Let's see here. Leo Wins checking in. The free world is not enough. Send it to the outer. I love me some Leo. I miss you, man. We need to have a conversation, Leo. Let's talk before long. Troy Seal, me and Jim Gronow have been talking about this all day. I love Jim Gronow. My gosh, I got to spend some time with Jim back at the, this is probably 2005, 6, 7, 8, through there somewhere. No, heck than that. Probably 9, 10, or 11 at Kingfisher Society at Richmond Mill Lake. And Jim was catching these giant bluegills. Bruce was there. Bruce was fishing there. We had what we called the Pond Boss Quest for the Best. And we had, 12 guys there fishing to try to break their personal best species of fish, from flyers to redbreast to giant bluegills, to largemouth bass. There's chain pickerel in that lake. And there were a whole bunch of records that fell over those few days. And Jim Gronow broke his personal best bluegill record. And he was fishing with a little bitty crawfish crankbait about this big. And he was throwing it right up against the bank. And man, those bluegill would hit it. And then he'd set the hook. Well, I was his guide that day. And I said, dude, if you set the hook like that one more time, we're going to go back. I'm going to get a helmet. Because he was setting that hook so hard, that lure would fly right by our faces. And about the third cast after I said that, he set the hook. That crawfish crankbait stuck right there in his cheek. And I've got a picture of him. I had to take a picture of him. We had to go to the shore, and I got some wire pliers, some dikes, and cut the hook and pulled it out of his cheek. We kept on fishing. But I love me some Jim Gronow and In Fisherman Magazine. The guy's just a good, down-to-earth angler. Let's see, Andy Crowell. How important are aerators? Are they a must-have? I'll tell you this. Only if you want to keep your fish alive if you're pushing your pond. What aeration does, and as you guys are thinking about aeration systems, there's a variety of kinds. There's circulators that move the water horizontally or diagonally. There's fountains that pick water up mostly shallow and blow it up. Then there's bottom diffused aeration systems. There's solar powered, electric powered, wind driven aeration systems that are diffused, bottom diffused, where the high volume of low pressure air is blown through a diffuser and it breaks it up, where there's a column of bubbles that permeate and circulate and flow from bottom to the top. And it's shaped kind of like a mushroom, that bubble plume. Looks like if you took Alka-Seltzers and dropped them in, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, for all you guys that remember that, where you see this column of bubbles just cascading to the top. Now, the aeration systems don't aerate the water. You guys need to know that. They move the water so the water can cleanse itself and absorb more oxygen from the atmosphere. That's the way they work. And so if you've got a pond that's got some years on it, aeration is a good choice. Now there's all kinds of strategies and a number of great companies. Go to pondboss.com, click on the resource guide, look under aeration, and you're going to see some of the companies. And I've written a lot of articles on it. We've got one issue of the magazine 8 or 10 years ago that was devoted to aeration. So how important is aeration? I'll tell you this. I've seen aerators where diffused aeration where I'm absolutely convinced that they prevented a fish kill in ponds. Because what happens is once a pond reaches a point where the fish density is higher than producing waste than what a pond can process. And Landon Wyatt's on here, and this is part of what he does for a living, is studying water quality. I've seen aeration systems, I'm confident, especially in older ponds that are silty and eutrophic. All a pond needs is a turnover at the wrong time, like in August, or toxins permeating to the top, and 20 minutes worth of an oxygen depletion early one morning in August after 3 or 4 cloudy days, and every fish dies. Now, I have also seen fish kills in ponds with aeration systems due to something other than oxygen depletion. Typically, it's blue-green algae or some other toxin, but I do think aeration systems are important. I don't think every pond needs one. I think that depends on how much flushing you get, what the carrying capacity of it is compared to how much fish you've got, how much aquatic plant growth there is. There's some variables in there, but I'm a great fan of aeration. Let's see here. Let's go on down the road here a little bit. Mike Dower, I have a 1 acre pond approximately 9 feet in the middle that has a planktonic algae bloom. Dip the white paper in and it's brown algae. What is the treatment recommendation? I have Captain Copper Sulfate on hand. I tell you what, Mike, I would verify the species. Friend Landon Wyatt right here, because he's on here. Friend him. You can send him an email and he can send you, you can send him a sample. Also, at pondboss.com on Ask the Boss, on the discussion forum, is Bill Cody. Bill Cody can identify that plankton as well. So you need to know, first of all, if it's what your visibility depth is, and if you know that it's planktonic algae. Planktonic algae is typically not brown. It's a bright green, almost lime green planktonic algae. Blue-green algae ranging color tint to a blue-green tint, hence the name blue-green algae. Blue-green algae is not an algae, it's a bacteria. So figuring out what you've got, then come up with a treatment plan. Kelly Duffy's on this show all the time as well with Helena. Kelly Duffy, D-U-F-F-I. You haven't seen him today, but he'll see this at some point. Check in with him. So there's 3 sources that you can check to verify what you have and verify a treatment plan. Let's see here. Rudy Billings, I see conflicting information regarding treated wood for docks. What's the truth, please? I use treated wood on docks, and I'm not so worried about it because treated wood was treated with arsenic. It's not used with that anymore. I use treated wood, but also seal it. So if you're going to use treated wood for a dock, one piece of advice is seal it before you put it on the frame of the dock. Seal it on both sides, and then even if there are any issues with toxins, you're going to negate those by sealing it. Let's see here. Keep on going down here just a minute here. Harrison Davis. How much coverage of aquatic plants in a pond do you think it takes to cause the bass to lose weight due to their food being too hard to get? 70%? No, I think it's less than that. I've actually seen it. Here's my take of after doing this for 40 plus years. If a pond has got 15 to 20% coverage of some type of native aquatic plant, that's helpful. Now, I like to see 25 to 30% of a pond have habitat, because my experience has been, listen to this is good, 90% of the fish live in 10% of the water on any given day. Now that 10% changes with the seasons and the temperatures. Fish are a little bit more adjusting to temperatures than they are oxygen, for example. So if they got a good place where they can go get the temperature they want, and oxygen's adequate, that's where they're going to go. But on your question, 15 to 20%, up to 25% of a pond of good native plants like American pondweed, even bushy pondweed, eelgrass. That's perfect. Now, if it starts to get much more than 25%, then it's a nuisance to fish in. Now, it's not going to inhibit the growth rates or inhibit the pond's productivity in growing its bait fish. That starts happening at about 50%. Once a pond is 50% covered with plant life, now the game fish just can't access them, especially if it's bushy pondweed. Bushy pondweed is so dense that unless a bass makes a path in it early on, it can't get in it to feed. And there's enough density in that the bait fish are going to be able to escape. Girlfriend's standing on me wanting to get petted. So now by the time you get to 70%, now you have an imminent risk, I'm going to say imminent fish kill. Here's why. Because once you get to 70% coverage of aquatic plants, the fishery it's totally ruined for that moment. Okay, for that moment in time. Those bass can't eat. The bluegill probably can't navigate. They're grazing on paraphyton and food in that dense mat of vegetation. But even worse is you got photosynthesis going on, which is going to shove oxygen numbers way up during the daytime, even supersaturated numbers. I've actually lakes that have 70% coverage of coontail, and you can sit there. Actually, I've laid on my belly on the dock watching coontail late in the afternoon. You can see little bubbles of oxygen form and float to the top. That water is saturated with oxygen, super saturated with oxygen, where normal water in the summer, 85% saturation of oxygen is normal. But I've seen it, and I've measured it as high as 12, 13 parts per million at 5 o'clock on an afternoon in a heavily vegetated pond. And then that next morning, that means it's going to go from 12, 13, 10, whatever it is, straight down, because at night those plants are respiring, they're taking up oxygen, giving off carbon dioxide. So not only do you see a giant fluctuation of oxygen levels, which is stressful, your pH is going up and down at the same time, even in ponds that have great alkalinity. Because with the photosynthesis and respiration, carbon dioxide compared to oxygen, you're going to see spikes in pH. It could be 2 points per day. That's stressful on fish. So then you throw in the fact that you get 4 or 5 cloudy days, maybe even 2 or 3 cloudy days in a rainstorm. That's when you're going to have an oxygen depletion with 70% coverage of aquatic plants. And that's, when I say 70%, in August, a fish kill. If you don't have one, you're lucky. Just don't let it get that far. Let's see here. Jeff Thompson, pounds per acre for winter stocking of rainbow trout for a 6-acre pond in South Carolina. I tell you what, there, Jeff, your back pocket needs to be your guide. I typically don't stock rainbow trout in a 6-acre pond if I want to catch them, because you could stock probably 25 to 30 pounds per acre and get a 20% return on your catch rates. Now, if you feed them and you stock them densely, then your catch rates are going to go up. But now if you're going to feed largemouth bass and you want to stock, say, 6 to 9 inch rainbow trout, I'd say 10 to 15 pounds per acre. And I'd be tempted to do that 2 times. I'd do that right around the time the water's cool enough around Thanksgiving in South Carolina. And then I'd do it again in January. And in South Carolina, I mean, you're close enough to the trout farms in North Carolina that they're not going to kill you on freight, and the price is fair. So now if you were in Oklahoma City asking me this, I'd give a different answer because of the cost of the trout. But if you're wanting to catch them, man, I'd be tempted to find a little bit smaller pond on the place. However, it's still cheaper than a trout trip to Colorado. Do the bass eat the koi? Kyle McKean says, yes, they do. I think the bass eat them. I think the bluegill eat them, and I don't give them the best spawning habitat. Koi like to stick their eggs on on grassy substrate, and the 2 ponds that we've got neither one of them has much grassy substrate. You know, the old pond, you've seen the place there, Kyle. The old pond, it's pretty much straight down, drop off in a washed out ravine. It's been there a long, long time. So we don't, and the water's slightly tannic there because we got a lot of oak trees around it. So we don't have a lot of grass for the fish to spawn on. Now in the swimming pond, we've got a little bit more. And we see spawning activity each spring. It's really fun to watch them because they're really active. They're rolling over each other, and their colors are just vivid. They're really pretty. But But bass and bluegill, I do keep enough bluegill in the ponds and red ear sunfish. And gosh, that swimming pond, we got 3 smallmouth bass. I've got bluegill, red ear, largemouth bass, 1 channel cat. I don't know where they're from, but they keep the numbers in check. Chuck Brinkman, I see Ben Brinkman, Chuck Brinkman. Y'all spell it different. Y'all must not be kin. Really focused on balancing my ponds 4th year, though this year I would have to call a bunch of bass. Don't catch very many small bass, though. Could the bluegill be raiding the spawning nest, and that's what's keeping the bass numbers down? In your case, you are really pushing your pond. I know about your pond, Chuck Brinkman. You're pushing it hard. He's outside of St. Louis, out west of St. Louis, quite a ways. And you have 2 things going on. You have enough big bass that have been fed well that they're helping do your culling process. Plus, when you got big bluegills like you've got, those that are, 9, 10, 11 inches long, pound and a half bluegills, pound and a half bluegills that you feed every day, they're going to help keep the bass numbers down as well. A bluegill is a predator fish limited by its mouth size. And every little bitty bass starts off about that big. Just about the right size for a bluegill to eat. Holy cow, 721. I need to roll. Perry Cook, good to see you. Let's see here. Josh Jones. How do you feel about a feeding program for bluegill when catfish are present? Seems like the catfish eat all the food. Shocked up. 2 10-pound plus bass this year. 10-acre lake, 5 years old. Josh, I'll tell you exactly what I think about that. I think that I would be feeding my catfish and bluegill separately. Now everybody's going to say, what? How do you do that? Catfish are going to be, they will eat catfish food. Now, I don't know if you want to spring for a second feeder or how you'd like to do this, but the way you do that is set your feeder to go off and spit out enough feed that the catfish get full. And then they're going to leave. And once they leave, because catfish by nature are nocturnal, so they're going to head for deeper, darker water and get away. They're programmed to come eat that fish food when the feeder goes off. But if you'll feed them to where they're full and then have a second feeding, set the timer to go off about 8 to 10 minutes later, then the bluegill are going to be the ones to come feed on that second feeding. So set up a second feeding. Now, if you want to, if you got 2 feeders, you can fill one feeder up with game fish chow or some of the pond products, for omnivores, for catfish that Purina sells. And if you can't find a dealer, they've got a dealer locator. But feed the catfish, and you let them feed, and then set a second feeder to go off just a few minutes after the catfish are finished eating, and then you're going to see a differentiation there. That's one way to manage that. Another way is to catch a bunch of catfish and eat them, which sounds easy. There's Kelly Duffy. We were just talking about you, Kelly, a while ago. You have to go back and watch. Okay, John Henry, Ozark Mountains, northern Arkansas. Okay, all right. Never seen any kind of bird, maybe a duck now and then. I bet you river otters are going to be an issue for you. That's what I'd be checking out. Kirk McGlamory joined in. Steve Lewis says, I need more girlfriends. Hey, listen, I've tried that. This one's enough. Debbie, it's kind of funny. Debbie's a little bit jealous because girlfriend is obedient to me. I've taken time to learn how the dog works, and she's real obedient. And Debbie can call her, and she won't come, and I can just say, girlfriend, here, and here she comes. So Debbie kind of is wanting to get another dog to play with girlfriend, wink, wink. I don't know. All right, Tom Blasdell. Hey, Kirk McGlamory. There's Mel Rothermel. She's my niece, checking in, school teacher who's been banned from the classroom by coronaviruses. Good gosh, you got to get back in there and do what you do good, girl. What you do the best. That's good stuff. Okay, so Tom Blasdell, the trap is actually a modified trap made by Tanglefoot that I suspend from a PVC pipe from my dock. I'll send pictures into Bob. You guys might remember Ron Ardoin. Ron Ardoin was a guest of mine from South Louisiana here a few weeks ago. He takes a blue plastic batting helmet and covers it with that sticky stuff, and deer flies flock to it. I don't know how he gets them off, but they flock to it. Okay, let's see. Troy Seal, yes, Jim is a great guy. Drove 8 hours to fish for 3 days with him. He's a national treasure. Awesome dude. Yes, he is. He really is. You drove 8 hours. That's cool. It's worth it. Danny Mac, I need a fairly large floating electric skimmer to take out floating scum. I've not found one yet. If anybody's going to find one, it's going to be Danny Mac. Todd Austin, so if you have a pond of a 1/4 acre that's 50 plus years old, would you use aeration to rebuild the pond? Todd, A 50-year-old quarter-acre pond would not break the bank to rebuild. Now, aeration is not going to take a lot of years off of that pond. Now, if a bunch of the silt is organic, it will help process that silt. I tell you, for a quarter-acre pond, it would be money better spent to drain it and renovate it. Or I would check on the cost of doing that, and if you have another site right downstream of it, build a new one. So the due diligence, here's your due diligence. Have somebody come look at it that can advise you on whether or not you should clean it out. And it doesn't cost a huge amount of money. I mean, Michael Gray, check in with Michael Gray on here. Check with Mike Otto as well through Pond Boss. It doesn't cost a lot of money to renovate a quarter-acre pond. Not going to break the bank. And what you've done is, if you renovate it, get the silt out, you can do it either by dredging or by draining it and pushing that silt out over the dam and then mixing it in with soils downstream, in the watershed down below, and grow grass on it. If you do that, you're going to take a 50-year-old pond and make it 0 years old. And you're starting, so you're going to give it 50 more years, especially if you manage the watershed upstream. All right, to remove the silt. Yep, I would look at the volume of silt. Get in a boat, take a probe like a piece of PVC pipe, touch the bottom, push it down through the silt, see how thick the silt is. And then let's have a conversation, because I'll help you with your due diligence and help you find somebody. Zach Bollinger, how you doing? I'm doing great. Let's see, Jay Spires, our new pond construction in Virginia has been delayed with all the rain. Imagine that. Crazy, huh? Original plan was stock copper-nosed bluegill, shellcracker, and fatheads early spring on a feeder, possibly stock F1s. Whoops, I lost it there a minute. Late summer and early fall, assuming no bass this year. How late in the year can we stock the forage feeder fish, hoping you have a pond built by the end of July? I tell you what, I would go ahead and stock those forage fish. Once you get the pond built, Jay, allow it. You want it to be at least half full going into a rainy season. And at that point, you can stock it. And the latest, I would stock it. I don't think I would stock it much later than Thanksgiving or the week after Thanksgiving. But between the time it's about half full going up and Thanksgiving would be a good time. Then you can stock bass in June of next year. Zach Dombeck's in. Jay Spires, thoughts, recommendations, too late. Yeah, I think it would be too late to stock bass. Leo says, preach about the deal and the biomass like Nobel. I wish they did give away Nobel Prizes. Chris, thank you for sharing your knowledge on stocking and feeding. You bet. Absolutely. I had to step away so koi can be in a pond. Hey, Kenneth, I love you, man. Rewind. Watch it again. Yes. Kurt asked, did I buy? No, I did not buy a goat. I hired some kids. Oh, bad pun. Sorry, boys. There's Bridget West checking in. Okay, Scott Scaffar. Hope I said that right. Good to see you. How do you establish a acre pond that has bass, bluegill, crappie, and catfish? In that case, Scott, I don't know where you are, but if you want to establish minnows, research them a little bit. Golden shiners are probably your best bet if you want to establish minnows, depending on where you are. A 2-acre pond with bass, bluegill, crappie, and catfish. Rather than spending much money on minnows, it would be more efficient if you bought a fish feeder and fed Purina's Aquamax sport fish food to your bluegills, reduce your numbers of predator fish, make the pond produce more bluegills naturally, and there's your food chain. So you can do that if you want to. Okay, so here we go. It's knocking on the door of 7:28. Hey guys, $35 a year. If you haven't subscribed to Pond Boss Magazine yet, please do that. That's what fuels the economy and helps make this possible. That plus sponsorships from Texas Hunter, Purina Mills, Mossback, and Easy Doc. I didn't see David Schneiderman on here tonight, but we've got several sponsors that step up and help us with this stuff. And for more information, you can also go to pondboss.com. Now, we got 160 videos archived on different topics, this same format, different places. We've got all kinds of free articles on the Pond Boss website. We got the discussion forum where there's all kinds of experts that can ask. You can ask questions, get great answers. So we're knocking on the door at 7:30, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for all the kudos and the kind words, and thanks for joining in, and appreciate our sponsors. So hey guys, I'm not sure where I'll be next Wednesday because I wasn't sure I was going to be this Wednesday. I'm hoping I'll be home And either way, wherever we are, we're going to bring you another show. So until next Wednesday, we appreciate you guys checking in, and adios.